Alright, another draft physics video. Yay. Anyway, comments, mostly. And, the conversation that is provoked by them. So, start with an ick. Yeah, chick. Anyway, but this is sort of psychobabble mush. It can be difficult to learn how to see. I guess that is once you have started to rely too much on your memories. But, memory is another word for experience, and experience is a good thing in terms of context and understanding. And so that's almost like knowledge experiences. So, I don't agree. Impressionistic painting is a great exercise to get into the moment instead. See, I don't think so either. Um, unless you're impressionistically painting something you're not imagining, something you're actually looking at, maybe. But still, painting always provokes thinking, in my opinion, so it's a dead end. But whatever. Self-help is nice and all that stuff, but I got no use for it, frankly. Anecdotal, no, it just doesn't. Don't play that. So anyway, Baz Taylor. He did talk on ether fields, but I am none the wiser for what that is. He applied the properties of magnetism to explain it. Electrons don't exist. Everything is fields. Yes. Well, anyway, that's the ether people. They don't really explain much in terms of, especially when it gets to the waves in their ether thing, because waves spread. That's what waves do, and they shouldn't be using words like wave to describe what's going on because it's not doing anything waves are supposed to do, even if they're in a medium of some kind. So the whole concept isn't very good. It just isn't very useful, in my opinion, as physics. It's, it's useful if you don't want to answer the questions. Then it's good for not answering questions either. It's a good, when you can't say anything reasonable, that's not the right way. I have to hit the other arrow key, I guess. Makes sense that it has to go in the downward direction to move forward. All right, Andrew F. Oh, thank God someone else sees through his God complex as well. Yes, well, that's what it all seems like. So these are apparently anaconda, same difference. Angry photographer guy, we'll call him. Ken Wheeler responses. All right, so this Leonard Susskind link, I think I mentioned before that parapelagic left. Incredibly, obtuse, way out there crap. I don't know why you think somebody would be interested in watching it. I don't even think somebody who's interested in the subject could be interested in listening to it. It's so convoluted, and it really has nothing to do with Copenhagen. It has nothing to do with Copenhagen. Copenhagen is the photons with radar versus the many universe theories. I mean, who wants to contrast two really dumb ideas? But anyway, so some asshole said, try doing it a third time. Yeah, try commenting. Better, asshole. Alright, then we have some superior mind comments. So let's do these Van Gogh ones. They're no doubt dumber. Under applied circuits, pretty sure nobody here believes gravity has an instantaneous effect in reality. This is sort of important stuff. So, let's see, is there a beginning to this stupid thread? No, okay. I thought there was a thread there, but I was wrong. Alright, so this Vincent van Gogh faker is just another asshole, of course, and so we'll read his asshole comments. Alright, I caved in and read your two insane comments, so I don't know who he's responding to, and really I have nothing to add to my explanation. If you don't get the concept, then why would you comment in the first place? You obviously don't understand any of this stuff. You don't know that Newton's system does not assume that the force has to travel across space over a period of time. Yeah, and it really doesn't make that big a difference. So again, the fact that Newton didn't include the speed of light didn't mean he didn't say, he just didn't opine. And frankly, for most of what gravity does, it's sort of irrelevant. Um, the speed of light, the fact that gravity travels the speed of light doesn't mean too much in the context of the inverse square law, where the gravity is spread across a whole bunch of space. If he did, then his equations would have looked like Einstein's field equations. I don't think they would have, because they wouldn't include bending time, and GR would never have had to be invented in the first place. Well, that's sort of a funny statement. I'm going to delete your comment because you're an idiot, but certainly there's more to Einstein's theory of general relativity than just saying gravity moves at the speed of light. And the ironic part is it seems that what Einstein was saying is that the radiation, okay, that can be produced moves at the speed of light. I'm not, it's almost getting to be blurry as to what he was talking about. I mean, it's blurry in what you people are even thinking when it comes to this Einstein bent space that creates waves of radiation. So that's, I want to make a whole video on just taking quotes from the Wikipedia page, because it just demonstrates how poorly founded any of this science is. I mean, what they were trying to do apparently in 1915, 16, 17 was to combine gravity and compare it, as Halliday says you're not allowed to, I'm not allowed to, make comparisons to the electromagnetic effect. And they were essentially trying to find a correlation between the fact that electrons produce electromagnetic force, or motive force, when they move, when they're accelerated. And so they were doing the same thing to the matter mass, and saying that planets or suns spinning around each other are emitting this force as they accelerate. They're not comparable in the sense that it's not the same physics. They're comparable in the sense that both of them are explained as creating perturbations in mediums. The bent space medium versus the whatever you want to call the fields, the electro and magno fields that don't really exist, but whatever. And in the case, okay, so and in case it isn't obvious, of course, Gary's theory does not assume instantaneous gravity. Well, the point is there's this whole word of assuming something. There's evidence for stuff, so you don't have to just assume. So clearly, I conclude that gravity is not instantaneous. I don't assume it. This wasn't the issue. The issue was you decided to defend him against this OP calling him out when you responded, and you did it out of your sheer ignorance, just as you do everything. So he's talking to a superior mind who is actually a superior mind, so it's just, you're just being an asshole. But I don't know why these aren't threaded, but I'm not going to worry about it. So I'll just read a little bit of Superior Mind's last comment here, because that ought to be, his comments are usually constructed in ways I wouldn't construct them. Anyway, actually, did you see the early part of the video? Skip ahead a little bit. Plus, it seems you misinterpreted the intention of my comment. When I said, with respect to the applicable usage, I meant that it can be used in the person, but not the equation, does not need to assume gravity is truly instantaneous. Well, okay, I get too deep into that. Alright, so Van Gogh says, I haven't bothered to read all of your response, so that's brilliant. So I'll just anticipate what you'll need me to say so you get it. The interferometer that is used to measure the gravity waves would not register the change in gravity if gravity acted instantaneously. Well, I mean, the argument could be made, if you mean by instantaneous, that its travel time was instantaneous. then of course it could, because it still would have a frequency and there'd still be something that comes later. So to say the bullets come out of the gun and they instantaneously hit the target doesn't mean that I could wait 3 seconds before I fire another bullet, and I could wait 3 seconds to fire another bullet. And clearly that could be observed. So instantaneous has you got to use the word with some sort of context here. No one's arguing all of gravity happens instantaneously. It's just that the moment-to-moment gravity could be an instantaneous exchange between the Earth and the Sun, and it would be hard to detect the difference from our perspective. This is because both ends are acted upon simultaneously. It doesn't, and again, it's just the argument is how long it takes something to get somewhere doesn't change how often the thing happens. Get it? He puts in question marks. Well, do you get that? That how fast the bullet travels doesn't have anything to do with how often I fire the gun? You get it? Stupid? And yes, Newton's equations assume that the force of gravity acts instantaneously. Again, how fast the bullet travels doesn't make that big a difference. If you deny this, then you are wrong. Again, it's clearly superior mind didn't deny anything like that. Hopefully that makes it so that you and any other retards out there can understand. Hopefully that clears stuff up. Yeah, well, hopefully I'm clear. And you got no right to show up here and just be a potty mouth in the comments. So if you can't show a tiny bit of respect, fuck off. I mean, it's not much respect required. Alright, superior mind, wrong on all counts. Wrong about what? So he's quoting the other asshole. I'll dumb it down for you. Using a constrained equation under an applicable circumstance does not negate its effectiveness for the specific purpose. See, that's just a little bit too blah blah blah. Yeah, whatever. I'm tired of talking to retards. That's another quote of Van Gogh. Alright, well, I won't bother with that. I'll just get to his idiotic... Ooh, I can't use the mouse. I remember to use the keyboard. Okay, my fault. My question is, do you understand anything we're talking about, and what are you doing to constructively contribute to the discussion? So that was superior mind. I understand that you are a retard, so yeah, it's obviously not useful. Van Gogh. I pointed out some of the inferences made could potentially be misleading. You are wrong on all counts. Well, that doesn't say anything. I'm not sure what the point of bringing up comparisons to Newton and Einstein was, since these are already understood. The point was that Gary was lying about Newtonian physics modeling gravity waves, retard. In what respect was I lying? You're saying Newton didn't understand when things circled around other things, they would be close and then they'd be far, and they'd be close and they'd be far. I think Newton understood that, shithead. Alright, moving right along. Alright, the original comment basically pointing out that Newton's gravity can be expressed in terms of Einstein's, were Newton's more of an static absolute version. Yeah, well, like I said, it's always better to have to do things correctly. So if Newton would have known the speed of light, it certainly would have been of interest to him, and he may have concluded that light and gravity move at the same speed, but he didn't. And again, the difference it makes is really complicated, because the only difference it makes is when you start adding in all the effects of all the different planets, and where 5 minutes of location makes a difference. But it's not a huge difference. Alright, Barry's comment addressed Gary's claim that the gravitational waves detected were caused by the oscillation of the force of the suns, aka the rapid change in distance, and that Newtonian physics would model this exactly the same as GR. Right. When in reality the waves are the result of the propagating degree of freedom of GR, whatever that means. In fact, the gravity travels like ripples along the fabric of space-time. Yeah, again, that's just such mushy rhetoric. So it's radiation, but it travels as ripples in the fabric of space-time. the radiation does. Now, I could try to explain further to you. Yeah, that would be a help. But it would take too long, and I'm tired of talking to retards. Right. So whatever. Yes, your explanation is silly, and you need lots of times to defend it because it's silly. Okay. Alright, so we'll move ahead. Superior Mind, do you actually comprehend any of the shit you read in the comments section, or do you just attempt to sound smart by stringing a bunch of stat words together without regard to whether they correlate into actual cognitive operations performed on the comment to which you are responding? Well, that's a uselessly long and stupid question. Alright. So there was an original post, my bad. Alright, so this Berry. Newtonian gravity can be written as space-time curvature. It doesn't, look, everything is a curvature as soon as you have the inverse square law, so I don't want to have to say that over and over again, but it's just the inverse square law automatically creates a proportional change that can be, metaphored or analogized. You can use different metaphors to describe it, the shape of it, as a curve. Newtonian equation is a constant equation. It does not describe propagating degrees of freedom. No, what it doesn't do is separate the two bodies and, recognize that the force is acting on both. No gravitational waves, gravitons, etc. Again, but that's exactly how you can model the inverse square law. You can model the inverse square law as an external pressure that will do exactly the same thing as the inverse square law. That's why it's called Mach gravity. No speed of light limit for gravity. Again, a small detail. All matter has an instantaneous gravitational effect on all other matter. Well, that's just silly. So, fuck you. You're an idiot. Where's your proof of instantaneous anything in the universe? So anyway, fuck them. Yeah, delete it. Stupid comment. I mean, stupid in the sense that if you're going to make a bold assertion, then demonstrate it with a link to the evidence that demonstrates it. This is bullshit. Okay, and then some guy did some crap about the sand dollar. The sand dollar and the starfish are connected only by order, not family. Well, by order is pretty significant, but they obviously you could look at the two and you can see they're the same organism in the sense that the starfish pattern is in the sand dollar, and that they have exactly the same mobility. They move exactly with the same little tentacles. And they feed exactly the same way in a central mouth. So, I mean, they're so close in terms of their mechanical function that there's no point in calling them sea urchins and sea cucumbers and shit. Well, sea urchins, yes, because they also have the same features. But, I mean, a sea cucumber is quite different. That order being the endoderms, spiny skinned creatures. But, again, it's just fine. It doesn't change the value of my point, which is there's nothing spectacular about a sand dollar's pattern. Oh, fuck. Alright, so LOL. Yeah, the change in mass from the supernova would be incredible consequence to the orbit. That's a lot of directive energy mass interacting with in that event. Yeah, well, I mean, I should just take that clip, I guess, and I should isolate it and point it out. And every time somebody says these guys are the go-to guys, you got to listen to these guys know their physics, I should just play that clip because, especially in the context that these things are so close together, these binary systems. The first binary star system, the one in 1974, discovered, they're only a solar diameter apart, so they're spinning around each other at a distance of only a few 100,000 miles. That's it. Whatever the width of the sun is. I don't remember exactly. A tiny amount of distance. And one's supernovas, and the other one just stays there saying hi. Everything's fine. Go ahead, do it again. I don't care. It's just an uh, um, insane speculation. What is directive energy mass? You mean directional energy, or are you using a special lingo that only you get? Yes, I often refer to energy as the sum of directional units. It is directional, but I prefer directive, as in the sum of units that are guided in effect. It seems more explicit to me. Well, yeah, I'll say, that's marginal, but whatever. There's a whole bunch of energy moving in all directions, and it's going to take with it a bunch of matter that's in its way. Alright, Crispy, this should be an asshole. 212012A. Some morons want to stick with the Catholic Church Big Bang Theory to maintain religion in the sciences. Well, I really don't see any connection between Big Bang and religion. This guy knows nothing. The paradigm is over and done with. Get over it. I don't even know what that comment has any use at all. I don't think it does. Okay, the Vincent guy again. Why is it so... Let's see, I have to move this down. Alright, why is it so bizarre to you that a binary star system would remain a binary star system after the star supernovas? Well, I explained it because it's the biggest explosion we can witness in the universe as a visual thing, and it's described as, billions and billions of megatons of nuclear bombs going off. That's why, idiot. That's dumb. You're dumb. Supernova does not mean the same thing as turns into a giant star that eats... Who said it turns into a giant star that eats all the stars next to it? Who's talking about it eating? He's quoting this. He put this in quotes. Turn into a giant star that eats all the stars next to it. Who said anything even close to that, idiot? I certainly didn't say that. I said it's a gigantic explosion and nothing's going to stay. Everything in the space around will be evacuated by the explosion. There will be no binary system remaining after the explosion. The sun supernovas, I said these exact words, the Earth and Saturn and Jupiter and Mars and Mercury, they're all not going to still be there the next day. There is no decrease in the mass of the star when it supernovas. Well, it would seem quite idiotic if there was, wouldn't there? You explode and you get heavier? That would be kind of retarded. So where did I imply anything other than that, you asshole? I was arguing exactly the opposite. I was saying that's what they're saying. Somehow, after the supernova, you have a black hole. A black hole made out of what? What the fuck is left of the star that supernovaed? It just blew its guts out, flew out all over the goddamn place, shot a bunch of light radiation, all kinds of locations, and somehow it's going to coalesce into a black hole of any kind of size? I don't think so. So you're really dumb. That's basically all there is to it. Again, it just couldn't be a more irrational statement. I mean, not even close to describing my argument that I don't think explosions make things heavier. So this guy links to some paper. I don't know if that's any video use. This is how dumb you dumb fucks are. You're defending this shit. Fuck off. Defending what shit are we defending? I guess I'll have to go see what it says. Conventions for spherical coordinates. So what is this going to have to do with supernova? Oh, fuck it. That obviously doesn't have anything to do with it. I don't know why it's a response to that video. I don't know. Well, I won't delete it, but it's too stupid. You fucktards can't even agree on the symbols. Well, let's not argue about that shit. But anyway, fuck that comment. We'll leave the link up, but I don't see what point they're at. It's not responsive to the guy's point. He's defending that supernovas aren't energetic events. Okay, so what about the argument that an electric or a gravitational field is not the same as an ether. Well, clearly Ken thinks they're all the same, but whatever. But it just has some of the same properties. Right, so let's see. All right, so you're saying the universe is made of all these different kinds of ethers, and and we'll define them all by their properties. I don't see that being any improvement over a universe full of neutrinos and mu's and upsy quarks and downsy quarks and all this other crap. It doesn't have all of the properties of the ether, whatever that means. It only has some of them. This again, so you think this is physics? We'll just make up fake things, and then we'll just say, well, there's no universal fake thing. Some angels are 6 feet tall and some angels are 3 feet tall. Fine, whatever. So comparing it to a field. So comparing a field to an ether isn't very useful. I think talking about either one isn't very useful, unless you're going to explain how it works. The onus is on you to explain why the properties of the fields are not applicable to the situation. Well, that's the whole reason why you're making this justification, is I pointed out how you have no consistency, that somehow your bent space isn't a bent space. No, it's full of radiation now, and that's a problem. And you're just saying, well, no, some fields can have radiation in them. You're just making weak excuses why it's a different kind of field. It can do more than one thing. Not the properties of an ether. Yeah, well, whatever. You got nothing. It's just a God of the gaps answer. Your silly ethers are not a physics explanation. That's a formal fallacy of logic, dumbass. Okay, we'll see what the first comment was. The inverse square law is not relevant to any of this discussion. Amazing. The most important thing, the most important law, feature, fact of the transmission of any force is the inverse square law. But anyway, the inverse square law has many applications in physics, and it's a very general statement about the intensity. It can't apply to Newton's gravitational equations. It doesn't just apply to them. It was Newton's discovery, you idiot, where gravity is assumed to propagate at an infinite speed. Again, it doesn't matter how fast it moves in all directions, or in the case of sound waves through the fluid. And again, what difference would it make whether sound got to you instantaneously or it took, it only got there for whatever, 400 meters per second or whatever? What's the difference? How does anything profoundly change? I mean, I'm not saying you couldn't detect the changes. I'm just saying, in what way would they be profoundly significant? So just saying your dumb twin theory, your dumb Twan theory is the same as GR is a fallacy. I didn't say it's the same. I said the fact is you can make a pressure, an external pressure will do exactly what the inverse square law does. It has exactly the same effect. A constant, even external pressure on any spherical object will create exactly the inverse square law, because it's exactly the opposite of a radiating light bulb. You can imagine that, can't you, you dimwit? Ugh. Exactly the same function. That's what I said. I didn't say the two theories are the same. I said the key component of the two theories is exactly the same. The mechanism is explained by either one. It's like saying apples are red, steak is red, therefore apples are steak. Fucking idiot. No, it's nothing like that. That's not what I did. So fuck you, you liar. That's a formal fucking fallacy of logic, dumbass. Well, then you should have the name for it. If it's a formal fucking fallacy, you should be calling it something like the you can't call red things the same thing fallacy. But you don't even know the name of the dumb fucking fallacy, you dumb fuck. If you're going to cite a fallacy, then at least know the name of it, you stupid cunt. People. Noxious assholes. Obviously, way too many comments from the same douchebags. Okay, oh, and one more thing. Why aren't you a string theory believer? Because I think the idea of fucking endless and infinite rubber bands all over the universe is fucking ludicrous. It's as crazy as anything in your dumb Twan universe. Oh, okay, so a mechanical universe of bits that actually bang into each other and interact with each other and actually travel at a speed between different things is the same as rubber band theory. Okay, I think that just demonstrates how big a liar you are, how desperate to lie you are, because obviously they're not anything like each other. Where they turn at right angles and just somehow know to add force to create momentum. They don't just somehow know. Again, I mean, it's really simple. Two things go in, you know, and this happens. They exchange direction. Wow, that's too complicated for you. Amazing. You're really dumb. To create men to resist the force, you need gravity. Let's see what this part was. Turn right angles just somehow know to add force to create momentum and resist force when you need gravity. That's not in my theory anywhere, so again, another lie. The gravity is just a consequence of it not being polarized. It's the same mechanism as magnetism, but the magnets aren't coherent. Without coherent magnets, there's no coherent magnetism, therefore the force is weaker. And since rocks don't tip and tap, oh, so yeah, Van Gogh's still John Wayne again. He's doing his little tippy-tappy stuff. At 90 degrees and go through other types of rocks. And since rocks don't tip and tap at 90 degrees and go through other types of rocks, so even though there's nothing in the theory talking about them going through each other or some other kind of crap, they actually hit things, and you know, he just ignores all that. It's easy to calculate that the foundational bits in your universe are not Newtonian classical particles. Well, who argued that there's anything even called a Newtonian classical particle? I don't think Newton drew a picture of a classical particle somewhere and said, this is what a photon is. It's this round thing I just drew. I don't think that ever took place, moron. And you're not motivated by wanting everything to be like rocks. So there's nothing you can say. Rocks don't travel a constant speed. So I mean, clearly rocks aren't photons, retard. Well, string theory is up your alley. It posits the existence of fundamental particles that obey simple rules. No, it doesn't. It posits the existence of fundamental strings. Idiot. That's why it's called string theory, retard. But they are non-Newtonian, just like bits. Unlike your theory, string theory actually fits much of the experimental data. So, unlike that being the truth, which is a huge lie, string theory doesn't fit the data. That's why everybody doesn't believe it. And the truth is, you can't point out any experiment my theory can't explain. And so you're lying again. But at least we know who you are, the lying cowboy. So why not become a string theorist and call it a day's work? Well, I've already explained, so, I mean, I don't believe in the rubber band theory, and that's what string theory is. So, yeah, I don't think that's a good enough answer. I think it's as dumb as bent space or electromagnetic wavy photons. I think it's just a God of the gap theory to give all the properties to magical strings. I think the universe is complex at this level and gets simpler at the bottom, asshole. I've made that kind of clear, fuck for a fucking brain, you ugly cunt. Jesus. Keep wasting my goddamn time. I want to delete his other comment, which I'll delete the other guy's paper, but fuck it. And then I'll block him. You know, can't do anything honest. I mean, people show up here with dishonest names constantly, and then they talk about how they have integrity and can make accusations about other people. Amazing. Let's see. Your videos might be watchable if you didn't respond to every minor thing everybody says, repeating yourself ad nauseum. Well, I'm going to keep repeating some things ad nauseum until you make a response to them, like the fact that the two-slit experiment doesn't produce the soft graduation it doesn't produce the sine wave, an optical sine wave in the light experiment with two slits. It creates bars of light. It's not supposed to do that. And then it creates light that goes like this. It points at the edges. There's no math that points at the edges. So where's the facts? Now, I'm going to keep pointing out that your lensing evidence is rubbish, that you don't have any explanation for how the inverse square law creates an optically viable lens. A ton of these things are all really important. You don't have any responses to them, and until you answer those questions, I'm going to keep repeating them. And until you say something like, well, a physicist probably shouldn't say that, I'm going to keep pointing out how your 60 symbols professional physicists have crackpot ideas in their head, like somehow in a binary system where the two objects might be separated by less than 1,000,000 miles, one of them can go supernova and the other one just stays there and says, fine, no problem. Cunt. Okay. Michael Falwell, been a while. Let's see, I feel the whole scientific community has become fractured following different models and theories that contradict and conflict with each other. Well, there's no fracturing now, because they all just pretend it doesn't matter. They're all telling a different Red Riding Hood story, and it doesn't matter. It really wouldn't be a bad idea if science to get together and maybe just go over what all models and theories contain and come up with some running themes that seems to agree with each other and establish a core understanding of what's observable. Well, yeah, they ought to go back and figure out what's solid and what's mushy, and it doesn't seem like there's any will to do that, so, it's wishful thinking because they're not going to do that. Joe O'Connor, all energy is a construct, distribution, and transformation. Well, that doesn't mean a constant distribution and transformation. Doesn't mean anything. Of transformation of what? Clearly they argue that energy travels through bent space. Clearly they argue that there's magical fields called the electric field and magnetic field where somehow stuff moves through it, and then it transforms when it gets to the other side into some new manifestation, a new field. It goes from one field and then flies into another field. What is the basis of everything? Our thinking only using power of distribution makes us ignorant. What the fuck does that mean? So anyway, this guy says, the burden of the bun, take your energy and shove it up your ass. Well, that's not very polite, but yes, you should shove that crap. That was just woo. Alright, not funny news. Jeez, it's going on forever, isn't it? Oh, that's the Sandower thing. Good, we already did that. Alright, we already did the you're insane thing. Directive energy, yes, the directive energy thing. Okay, so that's the science community. So here we go. Fragmented soul. Let's see. These videos usually are fun to watch. It took me a long time to understand what the fuck Ken was talking about. You are like me. When I first came across these videos, I had no clue. As long as you keep your concepts, it's hard to understand. I suppose made me laugh when you... Well, I really don't want to talk about that. I mean, clearly Ken could use better rhetoric. I mean, he could explain it with, but yeah, he doesn't explain anything. He'll never, he says he knows what magnetism is, and yet he'll never explain why magnet A moves towards magnet B, and magnet B moves towards magnet A, or why they repel each other. That mechanism he'll never explain, and yet he'll claim he's explaining magnetism. He's a stooge, a shill of sorts. I don't even know what that means, so I'm not going to bother. I can just delete that shit. It breaks down to good and evil, truth or lies. It is the beast in mankind's hand. We can imagine it in many different ways. I don't know what that means. All energy is a construct. Oh, he's saying the same thing again. All energy is a constant distribution and transformation. I mean, clearly, how am I saying anything different? I mean, I clearly state in the video how the photon never stops moving. Goes into something and it always comes out of something. Or the something keeps moving or something. There's never a loss for its movement. Its movement always ends up going somewhere. Idiot. It is how energy works and everything. Yes, so that one's one we agree on. I don't need your instruction, douche. Let's see, I do enjoy the reflected image of everything. I don't know what the hell that means, so fuck that. Okay. You know what? How about both of you go down a well and someone throws a grenade? Both of you are fucking retards. Yeah, well, says you. There. Well, good response, Gary. Yeah, thanks. Alright, so here's half a day. I don't know why he's commenting. You really need to watch the other videos. I watched your videos. I played them. I went to the 360 symbols videos. I played all 3 of them. Pointed out how they're crap. Mass equals energy, not stuff. Again, it's just idiotic to say that we don't understand that matter, which is mass, is measured based on matter in something. It has to have neutrons and protons and electrons to have something called mass. And clearly a very small amount of mass is given to photons. And I would give it to the other little bits, of course, but whatever. But clearly the big bits trap that energy stuff. So they're the ones holding it. That's why they can release a photon. It's because they're holding them. The point has been made by me many times. I don't know what point you have made that's anywhere reasonable, but it continues to be reiterated by me and uploads. You keep uploading videos that say all kinds of contradictory things and making all kinds of different arguments, and yet you're saying you're making a consistent argument somewhere. And yet, even though special 60 symbols video dealing with complexity of mass, there was no complexity in the video. I played the video word for word, idiot. Where was there any complexity? As not stuff, you continue to talk in terms mass equals stuff. Everything is stuff, asshole. Energy is stuff. A photon is stuff. Everything is stuff. So you want to say everything's not stuff, then you're a retard. Further, you continue to speak in terms of light not having 2 momentums. Yes. All right. Well, anyway, let me get this back to be clear on this stuff argument. They're saying originally when say when you think of bent space, does anybody think bent space is energy or stuff? He argued it was geometry, right? That's what he argued. He argued it was geometry, that this is just a function of the universe, that the nothing has this geometry built into it. There was no recognition that there was any kind of active or aggressive force involved. He even was offended by the way somebody would use the word force to describe gravity because it's not a force. And now they're saying, no, we can have this thing called a gravity wave that's made out of gravity radiation. So we have this new form of energy. And somehow this energy has the capacity to do 2 things. It has the capacity to go wee woo, stretch and compress, stretch and compress. It has 2 functions that gravity doesn't have. I mean, gravity only displays one function, attraction, woo. It doesn't do wee woo. No, it just does woo, woo, woo. It moves things together. It doesn't push things apart. So how all of a sudden now we have bent space that has a repulsive feature somehow, an expansion feature. Where did that come from? And he's arguing as if he has some sort of reason to school me. Well, fix your own broken theory, nutter. All right, anyway. Further, you continue to speak in terms of light not having 2 momentums. Yes, you can't make, you can't do this thing where you say, yes, the light's going this way, and it's going this way. It's going this way, but it's also going this way. You can't do that. That's what I'm saying. And this distance is obviously a lot shorter than the double distance. So if you're going to say it jumped over here into the square, it went diagonally, the diagonal on the checkerboard is a longer distance. So if you move the checkers in a diagonal on the checkerboard, it's a longer distance, and somehow you have to do the longer distance in the same amount of time, which means, oh, you're fucked because you have to go faster than the speed of light to do that. And that's what the outside observer will see. He'll see your photons going faster than the speed of light. Light's not a baseball. You can't give it 2 momentums. Shit. But this disagreement has been demolished. Whatever. You agreed light can be aimed angularly. I didn't agree to any of this. So again, another just gross lie. Just a lie. I never agreed that you're pointing bullshit, okay, that if I point something perpendicular, the light automatically comes out crooked. I never agreed that it happens. I said I can't prove to you it doesn't, because I can't do an experiment at high speeds and show you that the light doesn't do this idiotic thing. And I also didn't concede that the light gets there in the same amount of time, because it's a longer distance. So I didn't concede any of this shit. I mean, you're just such a fucking liar. Okay, two momentums you concede can be reality. That is, there can be a reference frame for light wherein light is the diagonal, thus having a x and y component. I didn't agree to any of this shit. I just pointed out that I can't fucking prove to you that light doesn't do non-perpendicular. If I'm pointing the laser perpendicularly, that the laser comes out perpendicular. I can't prove that that's the way it works. Of course, if you continue to shy away from the material put at your feet, what material? There's no material. Or continue to deal with it. What's to deal with? Your imagination. I have to deal with your imagination? I mean, look, the argument's simple. They draw it. They show it. The light moves forward into the future, and then it moves forward into the future, and then it moves forward into the future to reflect off a mirror, let's say, and it just keeps moving forward into the future. So you don't have any perpendicular anymore. And clearly that line, that angled line, is much longer than this line. This is how much time you have, is this line. This line is obviously a lot longer distance, and you have to do that in the same amount of time. That's impossible. So your outside observer is not going to see the light move at the right speed, and it's not going to see it moving in the right direction. This perpendicular won't be perpendicular. Fuck you. Of course, if you continue to shy away from the material I put at your feet, there's nothing at my feet. It is a hugely distorted footing by continued interjection without dealing with the points raised. What point? And continue to strawman all the points by saying they claim unicorns. I'm saying there's no other way to say it. You're saying a photon's like a baseball, and you can throw it, all right, and your forward speed will be automatically added in the proper way to the speed you throw. So you can throw it this way, and automatically will throw in the extra speed and make it go faster, like a baseball going out the window of a bus. And you still haven't fixed that basic argument. That's the only way the baseball gets there, is it has to go faster. Oh, fuck it. Sorry, I read your comment, so I'll delete your comment. Our messing with power of distribution and destroying our planet, that is the truth. So that's Joe again. Fuck you, Joe. Too many comments, too stupid. Let's see, Joe again. The truth is stated in everything. That just is such a bunch of mush. Energy is in constant he's doing it again, transformation. We see it through the eye of knowledge, and is our forbidden fruit, the knowledge of good and evil through the power of distribution and transformation. It is the power and the face of God. Oh, okay, well, I'm not going to read more of this. You're apparently way too dumb. Sorry guys, I'm just a dumb electrician. A really dumb one, because you believe in God. The holy electricity, huh? Oh, man. We live in the lake of energy where the fire burns. That's enough of that comment. I do like watching fire burn. It is outstanding in God's hands. Mankind's hands give rise to the beast and the flames of hell. So interesting. So a true nutter visited. Okay, so Vincent again. So this is the cowboy, John Wayne. Yes, the lying, creepy, scurvy, fake person. No, the fact that we have so many explanations that follow from a more simple, concise framework of GR field equations is that so far match the observed data to whatever margin of error our technology currently allows is actually a huge advantage of our theory. So I'll give you an example. So Hothiday made a big deal about this one in relativity, where in 1974 they find this binary star, and they find that the orbits are in retrograde, or whatever you want to call it. Like, so, see, I want to do a whole video on this, but you can think of orbits as being either one or the other. It's like the pi thing. You know, there's no resolvable perfect orbit. And in a sense, you're either slowly leaving the solar system or you're slowly falling into the sun if you're in an orbit. It can appear like you're in an orbit, but you're really not. You're either heading for the sun or you're heading for freedom. In fact. And so, so they noticed this little subtle change, and so they established the percent of degrade in that orbit, and they use a number like 0.998 within plus or minus 2%. So all they say in the article is their number is in 0.02% of of the predicted result. Well, just understand the predicted result is going to be just a tiny, tiny, tiny number, right? So it's 0.998. And so their margin of error means that it could actually be 1, because the margin of error would include 1, and then all the way to 0.998. That would all be inside the margin of error. So it's actually an incredibly imprecise number. So here they make it sound like it's very precise, because they say, well, within 0.02%. But within the accuracy of this number that you're attempting to do, it's preposterously bad as an amount of error. It's a huge amount of error. So anyway, just an example of how playing little numbers games really just doesn't impress me, because you can see how they can be, like statistics, how they can be manipulated for evil little purposes. Alright, huge advantage of our theory. Yeah, well, your theory is shit. Okay. So, if your argument is so good and your theory is strong, why do you need to make hour-long videos? Well, again, I've already explained that. Somebody can say something it's really easy to just say something like, that sucks. Or, what's a better way to say it? That has no foundation in history. And clearly you'd have to explain its foundation in history. So somebody could say something, and clearly the explanation is going to require you to say, no, it does, because like Benjamin Franklin talked about it, and Thomas Jefferson did, and this guy and this guy. So somebody can make an accusation that you just can't fix by just saying, no, you're wrong. You have to actually defend it. And but again, these are just the same, simple-minded people doing. His expertise again is this tearing down. I've pointed this out before, but this is something, I don't know. Benjamin Franklin might even have said this. It's easier to tear something down than it is to build something. So that's just the way it is. So you little demolition people have the easy job. The builders, the ones who make something of value, they have the hard job. Breaking is easy. Fixing is difficult. Cunt. If your arguments are whatever, hour-long videos every day where you just repeat yourself over and over and over. I actually don't just repeat myself, so that's nonsense. But whatever. Not actually talking about your theory, but merely doing what you must think constitutes poking holes in mainstream physics by pointing out how they use equations instead of explanations. Well, pointing out how their equations don't work, and pointing out when they do have an explanation, it's ludicrous, like binary systems supernova and stay intact, which misses the point, because they do provide an explanation. Oh, where's the explanation of where the gravity radiation, what form it's in? Is it neutrinos? Is it quarks? What form does this gravity radiation get converted from mass into? Space is bent and carries energy in the form of waves. Of what? Waves of what? Right? They're calling it radiation converted from matter. That's energy. So it's energy moving through whatever this medium is, added to the medium. It goes into the medium. Energy went in. Energy has to come out. And mass equals energy. So when the body emits energy by conservation laws, it must lose mass. So we can actually create mass this way. We can make matter in gravity. Right? If we can make matter into gravity, then we should be able to make matter out of gravity. Even though the word mass no longer has a Newtonian definition you prefer, again, I'm not the one worried about any kind of definition of mass besides what I've described it as, okay, as the constituent elements are the only thing that have measurable mass. And calling physics a unicorn theory, I didn't call all of physics a unicorn theory. I pointed out the exact parts that are quite unicorny. The ones dependent on binary stars that supernova and stay intact, which is also a backward argument. It's not appealing to any other mutually agreed upon premises, so how are you going to call it an argument? I'm just saying I've made the arguments, and my point, my only objective here is I have a much better theory, a unification theory that not only unifies, which none of their theories does, but it does so with the simplest form of mechanics you could possibly create that would actually accomplish the task of unifying. There's no other simpler method. This is it. That's why it's the right answers, because it's just impossible to conceive of anything simpler actually being able to explain so many different phenomena. So I have the right answer, and they have the wrong answer, including you. And my objective, yes, is to not only defend my better answer, but I have to obviously get you people to let go of your fucking current Jesus and explain to you how your Jesus is an idiot and he isn't worthy of your love and praise, and you know, it's a bad God. The point of an argument is to present a case for a point of view based on simpler, yes, exactly, more readily accepted premises. Yes, exactly. The premise is science is a fairy tale, therefore science is bullshit. What? The premise science is a fairy tale, therefore science is bullshit, is nothing but an emotional appeal. Well, I didn't say just that. I pointed out how it's wrong, it's not as accurate as they think, and I showed the contradictions right here where they're talking about gravity. One minute it's a mathematical geometry, the next minute it's full of radiation. Wherein you hope that the stupid people that watch you have a visceral reaction to calling people that believe in actual physics religious kooks. It's not an argument. It's a well-defended argument that your fanatic devotion to ideas that have like, for example, defending the incredibly weak evidence for lensing and the weak evidence of any kind of Huygens or Heisenberg. Your whole wave theory of the function of photons is so silly in the sense that how can you even form in your brain a notion of a wave that doesn't spread? How is that a wave? Maybe it's a torpedo. Maybe it's I don't know. How can you even call something that doesn't spread a wave? And another thing, the language of physics is mathematics. Well, that can be your language of reality, but guess what? Your silly numbers are not reality. Okay, numbers are not reality. So any physical explanation must be mathematical. No, all it has to do is be accurately describe relationships. Everything's about relationships, okay, and how the things interact, properties and relationships. So again, your numbers aren't going to answer those questions. You might want to, you might want the dumbed down hotkey explanation in terms of things you are familiar with, and you're the ones who are pretending they don't exist, like the inverse square law, for example. The simple mathematical formulas that you can't figure out are exactly the same. So again, you're the idiot who believes, who thinks it isn't true
that Mach gravity perfectly duplicates the inverse square law. Now it's a fact, all right, that an external pressure is exactly what an even external pressure on anything spherical would be exactly what the inverse square law is. And you're too stupid to acknowledge that fact. And then you're going to lecture somebody else on how they're playing the game, when you can't play the simplest part of the game, which is to concede things that are just overtly factual. Alright, explanation of things you were familiar with, like billiard balls, but that can only take you as far as being able to picture nature of reality in your head. And you're the idiots talking about your stupid fucking bent space and using, descriptions that are only two-dimensional. And then when you have to really do them in 3 dimensions, then you see what they really are, which is infinite wells, that somehow stuff is constantly falling into the infinite pull in the middle of the sun that doesn't use up any energy. So all of a sudden it creates gravity waves. It'll waste energy spewing it into space in this new form of radiation, but somehow it doesn't consume any energy to sit there and pull things into it. But the nature of reality still exists whether you can picture it or not. I have no problem picturing it, asshole. You're the ones with the rotten picture. And the nature might just happen to be something that you just can't understand. Well, whatever. I'm not afraid that the universe is made out of the mush you think it's made out of, because it's not. The logical principle that it gets simpler going down is sustained by the fact that I found the simple answer. And the very fact that all you religious kooks are looking for God down there, that's why you couldn't see it, because you're religious kooks looking for a God. In your simple head, which was, according to you, designed to be nothing more than a bug-like scheming, conniving need machine. Well, what the fuck else do you think the design was, you idiot? You think we were designed to be what? Religious? Yeah, is that it? It was the designer's intent? We weren't designed just to be a different form of crocodile, that uses lies and deception and fake IDs and fake names and other kinds of canardy little bullshit. I mean, you're the one behaving like a bug, jackass, not me. Shit. Alright, numbers and equations rely on power of distribution of the constant failure to renew everything. Fuck you. God, this guy's got to go. Joe, you got to go. The broken wielding the broken. Welding the broken? I don't know. Fuck it. Just, let's see. They call it power of distribution. I don't know what any of this means. Let me just see how many of these. A ton of it. You want to talk about idiots, you should listen to yourself. Okay, yes, I've made a discovery. You are not a very nice person who can't see beyond your own reflection. Yes, that's you. And yes, that is the simplest of 4 explanations for all energy. It's just retarded. Fuck you. Fuck you, I said. What binary input is the power distribution of... whatever. Let's see if we can find his last comment, and I can just delete him permanently. Alright, this is close enough. The foundation of everything is a constant distribution and transformation. You just keep saying the same thing over and over and over. Alright, so we will get rid of him. Bye, John. You be too stupid. Very, very too stupid. Incredibly too stupid. Alright, Gwyneth. Last comment. Cool. This is the saddest, most butthurt video I've seen. Oh, you must be a Ken Wheeler fan. Oh, it's a woman. She is clearly a light, fun personality to introduce children to scientific ideas. It must be physics girl or something. She's making physics videos that children wouldn't be watching, so that's just bullshit, Gwyneth. For someone so offended by her accuracy, no, I don't think that's what happened in the video. You sure say I think and probably a heck of a lot. Again, without a context, yes, I'll say conditional words. I'm not an idiot. I don't say it's the truth. Also, picking at her background. I don't know if I did that. I would love to see you try to debunk a video with less pure opinion and more actual proven points backed up by evidence. Try again, sad old man. Well, fuck you. Creepy, scurvy bitch. There, how's that? Yeah, stupid people in the world. Yes, they are. Alright, we'll see if there's any new comments. LOL. So we laughed at something in a video, and Feynman was correct. We can't observe things like electron wave. Again, I don't, why even? Oh, anyway. We can, however, use the wave function to accurately describe the probability of its location. There's no wave function as anything other than its probability. It's a probability wave, according to Feynman. So you don't even have that right. It's not some real wave, which can be interpreted as some to mean it's both a wave and a particle. Feynman calls it a corpuscle. He says overtly, he's not a big fan of your duality thing. He says, clearly it's not a wave because it doesn't spread and it clearly lands as a corpuscle. So in his opinion, it's a corpuscle. He's just saying that yes, there is this wave function, and the wave function is the probability curve. Okay, that's all it is. That's the wave. It's the wave of probability. It goes to 16% chance down to 0% chance, and up to 16% chance and down to 0. That's the wave he's talking about, idiot. It's not a real wave, fuckhead. But I mean, it's in the videos from Auckland. Okay, that series. He says right in it, it's a corpuscle. Alright, what binary input is the power of distribution and the transformation? Oh, that's idiot again, sorry. Don't need him again. Alright, done with comments. Oh, yeah, so I do want to get to an overview video of my physics as a contrast, instead of just arguing their physics all the time. But this gravitational wave thing was interesting, because I was ignorant on a few facts about the origins of it. And I had no idea that it's this Poincaré guy and some other guy who had started this whole conversation about moving bodies creating radiation, like electrons moving creating radiation. So that's where it came from. They were trying to force electromagnetism into gravity. And then apparently Einstein did some of that, but he didn't like what he did. And then he wrote a paper in 1935 saying it's all crap, and then they didn't publish it because and that pissed Einstein off. So Einstein never published after that because of that paper being rejected. And then they say he republished it somewhere else, agreeing with the editor who didn't publish it, and saying he agrees that gravity waves exist again. But I can't find that paper. So anyway, but the history is bizarre. But I didn't know it was connected to this whole effort to make gravity like electricity. So it kind of falls into the electric universe people's hands, because that's what they were trying to do, is tie a connection between the function of planets and electrons. They were making direct comparisons between the two. And that's where all this crap came from. That's where it started, let's say. Okay. So, but it wasn't one of the fundamental established formulations of general relativity. It was a sidebar. It was a little add-on. It wasn't part of the fundamental theory of general relativity. Okay, so that's enough of that. Yeah. What else do I want to say? Yeah, that's enough for now. So much, you'd spend years doing this shit. And I don't have years. Feel it in my bones.